get to introduce Dr. Rob Lamberts, who is fantastic, who opened in 2013 in Augusta, Georgia. And he has the difficult task of moderating the three of us, mostly probably my behavior and language. This one? Do you want to sit in the middle or on the end?
Hello? Testing? Yes, there we go. Well, I get to follow this grand trio. Again, my name is Rob Lamberts. I'm from Augusta, Georgia. I'll give you a very, very brief thumbnail. Thumbnail is a thin thumbnail. I was practicing for about 18 years in a private primary care practice. I actually was the senior partner of that practice and happened to hire, I shouldn't use foul language. I hired some people who were less than the types of doctors that I wanted to hire, and I learned in retrospect that you got to hire people who you want to see them as your doctor or bring your family to. And they ended up getting into this big situation, ended up basically getting a divorce, and I got deposed. There was a coup d'etat. And so I ended up having to leave the practice that I had started 18 years before. And I sat and thought, what did I want to do? Do I want to go work for a health system? There's no way that I go to the dark side, you know? I mean, really, I had spent time, and I had already been blogging by that point in time, calling one of the local hospitals, you know, stents are us, you know, that type of thing. So I don't know how welcome I would have been in that type of circumstance. They would have whooped me into shape or something, I don't know. You know, then there was the idea of joining another practice and no longer being a senior partner, and honestly, I'm just too headstrong to take orders from somebody. So, and so really actually what ended up happening is I ended up talking to Dave Chase. Dave Chase, for whatever reason, he and I got in touch with each other, and I think we both read each other's stuff and just enjoyed reading it. And he's my Yoda, you know. He's the to the dark side you don't go, you know, whatever.
That's pretty good.
Primary care direct. Yes. Anyway, but Dave was really instrumental, and at one point in time, even talking me off of a cliff where I was about to, you know, I had this image of this type of practice that I wanted, that every patient had all of these wonderful things available to them, and after the first month, I wasn't giving it all, and he just told me to not be a moron and to focus on what was my minimum viable product. What was the thing that my patients wanted more than anything? And for me, the thing that my patients wanted more than anything is access. So I opened it up 4 years ago. I made it as simple as possible because I am allergic to decimal points. I see a decimal point and I run screaming. I like the bigger picture of things, and so all of those little accounting things that I just needed to get rid of those. And the nice thing is I made it so easy that even a doctor could run the business. And I say that, you laugh, but that's actually true. We are not good business people, and so direct primary care, one of the benefits of it is just that it's simple. And simple is good for me because I don't want to focus on that. I really, really, really love patient care, and I think that's the thing, one of the things that you're seeing with all of us here. So I'm not going to talk any longer about myself, but after 4 years of doing it, I have 700 patients now and continue to grow and continue to just enjoy being with the people I want to take care of. So anyway, this group you can look at this group as a group of experts. We talked about this before among us. It's really more of a group of survivors, one literally, but really you look and say, well, we must have something that the other folks don't have, the folks who didn't succeed. I wouldn't look at it that way. Sometimes it's just we got lucky. And you know, there's other people who are just as smart, just as hardworking as we were, who didn't succeed because they had office manager embezzle from them, or they made some wrong choices. You know, I happened to talk to Zach and Graham at a certain point in time, and I happened to meet up with other folks at the right time, and to some extent, it's not easy. And that's where we're going to start, although before we start, I just remember I have to say one thing. There are live questions that you can submit, although this is more to the virtual crowd out there, because there are a lot of people watching from wherever, Jupiter, I don't know. But anyway, so if you do have questions, go to the community.hint.com, and there's a questions for Hint Summit provider panel. I'm not going to read the whole URL. But anyway, if you go to that website, you can submit it. Now, I'm going to open it up to y'all, and I'm from Georgia, so I say y'all. So I'm going to open it up to y'all to be able to ask questions, because I want this to be something that is useful to you, and not just some pie-in-the-sky sales of, it's so easy, it's so great, you're going to love it. Yes?
Ken, could you talk specifically about how Craig Scarrato helped you, the addition of
We're going to get to that. Right now, I haven't opened it up quite for questions yet. I'm going to open it up for questions. I get to start because I'm the moderator. But you'll get the first question.
So are you asking questions?
I am just about to ask questions. Don't you moderate me. I didn't get 10 minutes. You did. I guess one of the things, what I wanted to start out with this group is, what are your low points and high points as far as the business? What are those times? What are those things? And I want to emphasize low points, because and it's not to be depressing. It's because there are people out there who are doing it, and it doesn't seem like it seems on TV. It's not so easy. And when you're actually out there, there's some scary moments that we go through from a business standpoint, and then there are those exhilarating moments let's go ahead and just start. Lisa, what was...
Low point. I'm like the perpetual optimist, so I'm going to have to dig for a low point. I know what it was. So starting in 2000, I announced it in 2011. Every time I talked about it, I got this look like when a dog is confused and it goes like this to you, like, what do you mean? And so going into it, when I sent out my letters, everybody who's started knows sending out your letters is terrifying. I was like, oh my gosh, we're going to have a barrage of people. We're going to have a waiting list. Like, we got to get ready for this. And like 200 people signed up out of like how many thousand. And so it was like, at first I felt like, wow, so my patients kind of think I suck, I guess. But then you have to realize it had nothing to do with that. It's that they didn't get it. They didn't know what the model was. And so one of you boys said, it's not about marketing, it's about teaching and educating. So if all of your patients don't sign up from your letter, don't freak out. And it doesn't mean you're a bad doctor. They're going to come to you. So that's my one little negative. Now it's your turn.
No, I probably had similar to the same negative. I really expected more people to come over. And there were actually a lot of people that showed up with tears in their eyes saying, I just can't afford that monthly membership fee. And I was pretty reasonable and said, I just can't do this. And I really want to keep you as my doctor. And is there something we can work out? And I said, no, this is kind of the model going forward. And literally there was a New York policeman that was in town, this Irish New York policeman with tears down his eyes saying, I don't want to leave you, doc. That was tough. But he just couldn't see that this was going to benefit him down the road. And another low point literally was the combined amount of income was less than $100 at one point. And that next day checks came in, but oh my gosh, I was just like, oh, what am I gonna do? What can I sell? It was the type of thing. So it wasn't always that it was just this flow through that. So those are probably the two lowest points that I had.
I guess mine would be similar. My business plan was based on the idea that I wouldn't be profitable till year 3. So that's right about now. And actually, I should have taken my first paycheck this month, but instead I bought a laptop. The financial stress is pretty tremendous, but the flip side is, as physicians, I don't know any, well, there's probably other professions that can sort of hustle and negotiate hourly wages in the dark hours of the evening and the weekend. So right. My advice is, if you're in a situation like me, which is you've got to make this work from scratch, start looking at urgent care, on-site employment clinics, hospice medical directorships, and only accept an hourly wage. And I'll tell you, it needs to be over $100 an hour. They'll start at $85. And anyone's welcome to email me about. But because when you're paid hourly and the system's totally dysfunctional, you're still making money when you're, so my low point, ironically, my low point wasn't really cancer, although it does bring up what am I doing? Do I really want to be a doctor? Is this worth it? So that's probably an existential point. But the hard part of the first 3 years is the finances.
Yeah, I will just echoing that after my first year where I actually didn't earn anything, I actually qualified for Medicaid. I mean, it was that hard, and I had 3 kids in college at one point in time. It was a really bad time of life to do it. And it was scary as anything. I mean, it was really hard to be facing all that stuff down and to be looking, every day looking at this balance in my home bank account. Am I going to make my mortgage? My work bank account. Am I going to make payroll? And it's just this month by month thing that I never thought I would do. And it's this feeling in the gut of your stomach, yet. It does pay off, but it is hard. When you have those feelings, they are really tough. Actually, just a word for Hint Health, I actually had been with a different billing system ahead of time because they came into existence after I started, and Zach was wanting to convert me over. And I was so scared. I was going to say scared shitless. I guess that's fine. I was. Totally absent of shit in me. But because they were going to hit my cash flow. It was like, that's my lifeblood. If switching over all of my patients on this one billing system over to Hint, I was just afraid that I wouldn't have money to pay my mortgage, that I wouldn't have money to pay my staff. And they did an incredible job. Switched me over in 1 month. And again, I could not believe. And then finally Zach was like, Rob, I'll personally guarantee, we'll loan you money if we need to, whatever. And it's like, golly, what great guys. I mean, but really, as far as the professionalism of how they ran and how within a month the cash flow never took a dip down at all. And I think Zach would guarantee any of you guys too. All right, next question. Have you worked at all with businesses? Have you done any of the contracting with businesses here? Anybody here have done that? Tell me about your experiences in that regard, because for me, I have not. I haven't needed to. It's kind of grown organically. So how have you done it, and what are some keys?
Yeah, well, and I'll probably answer this question because when I linked up when Craig, and I met him at DPC Summit. So again, and Craig came out, and he's from Kansas City, and came out, and we actually went to businesses together, and he was trying to show them how they could change their present system because they were looking at 30 to 40% increases in what was going on and how that would match with DPC. We probably talked to maybe 5 or 6 businesses, and one of them bid on, and we got 125 people, and that was great. And then the next year they went bankrupt, and the whole company went out, and not because of the issues, because our fees really went up. No, but so that was. But the lessons learned were that a lot of these businesses we talked to 2 years ago are now coming back and saying, we are interested. And the time cycle is what I learned is a big time cycle. Now, we've got now a retirement community that is looking to make us their sole provider for 700 employees. And we just gave them recent statistics that for the 6 months that we were there, we only saw half of their population of people, and we saved them enough money to buy their membership twice over. Wow. To show them what would it be. And just yesterday I had somebody show up at my door saying, and actually this is kind of the communication tool we were using, Spruce, and I had sent a message through Spruce to say, how you doing? I sent it 3 days before. She happened to be with the CEO of the company as the message came through. He says, what's that? He says, my doctor checking on me. He says, you gotta be kidding me. I have a meeting with him next week. They want to convert everybody over to the practice. So some of it's just a matter of just word of mouth, and I think some of it's just presenting yourself out there. But truly, to me, it was an understanding, and I think somebody had mentioned too, I thought it might have been Dave Chase or something that's saying that I think it was important that all that money in benefits is put into people who really are maybe not qualified to handle those health benefits. And I talk to HR people sometimes was like, wow, there is a big problem here. Like, you're happier taking that 40% increase than looking, it's because you just don't want to change. You just don't want to get out of this pattern. So I thought that's a hard battle to fight. And I don't know if I'm equipped to do that, but you just kind of lay back. So those were really good experiences. And we've had small businesses, a business collision or auto collision place. Just had a drive-through place that was waiting to see if I was going to survive. And he says he'd been watching me, read about it, and then he showed up and said, and he signed up 6 or 7 of his employees. So that's tough.
I'll just comment real quick. Sorry, I'm not in charge of answer. That's his call. We have 4 small businesses, and by small, I mean like 1 to 5 employees. I've probably had 6 or 7 conversations with 3 other businesses over the last couple years, and you get your hopes up right away, and then it just takes time. But having the first few small mom and pop shops really helps the bigger businesses understand that there's a model for that. Just a comment, with what I did, the small sort of solo doc startup, my husband would disagree, but I was really mindful. I couldn't take on 100 people at once. And so, and I've kind of always been taught, both in business and in DPC, that if you take exquisite care of the first 60, the rest will take care of itself. I don't know where the number 60 came from, but that was some wisdom from Josh Umber, and I'm sure from just business in general. So my question was always, if I were to take on 50 or 100 or 200 and it's just me, I can't. What if they all want it in the same month? So I can't deliver on, and then I'm shot. And what if when I'm small and barely have any revenue, if 100 leave? So I sort of electively chose to grow slow by word of mouth in the little onesie twosies because it was safer. I'm to the point now where I have my revenue protected, that the larger businesses or the 50, 100 would be great because it wouldn't create a financial impact that would negatively hurt my business if they changed their mind or it didn't work. And I now have a nurse practitioner joining me so we could handle the volume. But there's just something to think about. There's a lot of different ways to do this.
All right, let's reach out. Question here. Go ahead.
All right. Hi. I'm Oscar Hernandez. I'm in the Miami market, and when you talk about commercial relationships, it seems to me that mom and pop outfits aren't going to be getting hospitalization and specialty care and so on because they go to you or they come to me to do DPC. Great for primary care, but what is in it for these commercial outlets when they come to you, because they still have to pay something else for their employees to get all these other catastrophic things taken care of, but they have.
So the question is, the mom and pop places, for those out in cyber world, the question is the mom and pop places can't, I mean, we provide the primary care, but what about everything beyond that? And they're either responsible to give that or either morally or legally now to some extent. So how do they handle that?
When the smaller group of employees, small enough, they're not mandated to give health care. And so, but they intrinsically want to provide something. So what you can do is say, I can provide you with a ticket where you're buying direct care with me. You're not buying an insurance company, you're buying me. And I'll show up and I will talk to your employees, and when they're going to see me, I'm their provider, and they'll feel the sense of caring that you're able to give them at a dramatically reduced cost. That is a good play for a smaller business.
Well, and they can negotiate. If you get a really capable insurance agent who can build a healthcare product around whatever your DPC offerings is or are, they're golden. And the savings, I think, one of the slides earlier today, I've heard up to 30 or more % savings. So the cost benefit ratio for the bigger companies is huge. So we're not the whole solution, but it's a huge part of it.
And I just wanted to just jump in quickly. There's going to be an entire section of this conference dedicated to employers. So I just want to make sure we don't steamroll the remaining 20 minutes with,
Thank you for moderating us. No, I would also add Liberty Direct as an option. They're the health shares, and that's what a lot of our folks, and we pushed a lot of people toward that as well. Matthew.
So I'd actually second that. There is a huge amount of need to understand that wraparound as more and more people. Thank you. As more and more people go to direct to high deductible insurance plans, you'll go, well, can this membership count against that? And there's a whole lot of confusion out there. So education plus better products to include this, because if it saves 30% And, Dave Chase is correct, which I'm not sure he is, that employers are ready to step up. There needs to be education on both sides. But I wanted to ask a different question. Returning back to, all four of you took a massive risk, right? Essentially, you changed your livelihoods and did things that, probably should have you, committed to some mental asylum. But you did it, right? There are options out there. There's MDVIP. There are some other sort of companies who are trying to support this. Did you investigate that path rather than just doing it solo? I'd just be curious.
No. So you're talking to the grassroots girl here. No, I mean, I owned my own practice for 8 years, and I did not want to be told what to do anymore. And I did not want to be concierge. I'm fine. I thank you for the doctors out here taking care of concierge patients, because I want to take care of the people who have no money to the people who are like middle class. So that's my population that I want. And the authenticity of DPC is in the doctors that are caring for the patients. And so the corporatization of it, Paladina is one example. In Denver, it's pretty big. It's kind of tanking and it's hemorrhaging physicians because they're being told what to do, and it's another corporate entity. So the value in DPC is the doctor.
I looked at opening a Zoom care. They're in Portland. I looked at buying a retiring doc's clinic that was a fee-for-service. And what I thought, and then what I've discovered, is if you're wired the way some of us are wired, autonomy is priceless. Autonomy is worth like $100,000 a year. Now, autonomy won't put my kids through college again, but autonomy in how you practice is priceless. And a lot of those other models are fantastic, and they work for people who maybe are less risk tolerant. But I mean, that's why I own my building. Right. I was like, I don't even want to be told what to do by a landlord, because I can't handle it anymore. So,
well, and I think that's one of the problems with a panel like this, because we're such early adopters, we are the ones who kind of say to hell with risk, and we'll go. Although I will say this, it was basically either I quit or I die. And so it was one of those, either I switch to DPC and take that risk, but there was a 100% that my miserable life would just get worse if I didn't go to DPC. And that's what, I did the risk equation. The risk equation was just like, I cannot stand doing practice this way. So, but I will say down the road, we absolutely need more and more tools to take the rank and file into DPC. And I think that that's a really important thing, because we have that entrepreneurial spirit because we started before there was really a model.
I do think, and I'd be interested in people's opinion on this, but I do not think that independent fee-for-service doctors are going to be in existence. I think they're either going to be bought up, or they're going to quit, or they're going to convert to DPC. I just don't see how they're going to survive under MACRA and everything else coming through there. I don't see how they're going to survive. And for me, I saw the writing on the wall, and just like you, I said, I don't have a choice. It's either this, or I quit, or I become an employee. And I'm fiercely independent and autonomy. And I thought, nope. And this is. I know we're not supposed to say better, but this is the better way. I mean, it's discipline, but it is the better way.
Yeah, people ask me, it's like, is it better practicing this way? I said, well, it's like my old practice is like somebody was forcing my head underwater and holding it. And the other is like I'm sitting on the beach and they're serving me, mimosas, It's like, which one is better? It's not even close. Yes.
So I really appreciate all of you guys for being here, and Lisa is one of my personal mentors, and Julie, and I just have that question for those of us that are on the next wave. So I've been open 8 months, and I came from corporate medicine, and is way better than getting my head underwater. And for me, even 4 years into corporate medicine, I was like, I have to get out. This is way too early in my career to be burnt out, and I have 2 young children, and it's not fair for them to see that I worked so hard to get here, and I don't like my job. And I love my job. I love what I'm doing right now. I'm so happy about it. I am drowning in success. I work all the time still. It's very hard. And I have heard this before, but I want other people out there to hear this also. Like, when does it get easier? Because I wanted to have all this time to coordinate, and I wanted to have all this more time with patients, and I do. But it's not as easy as I thought it was going to be. It's still a lot of work. And so I'm wondering, at what point does that get better? Is that year 1? Is that year 3? Is it still up and down some? I mean, it's just a lot of work still.
It's still up and down some is my first answer to that. And I will say that I limit the number of new patients I get to really 4 a week. And I'm growing slowly now. And once you start doing that, then you're able to manage the rest of your It's the new patients that drive you nuts. They're the ones who don't follow the rules as well. And once you get enough paying customers to make you not panic so much about money that you got to keep adding new patients at a terrible pace, then I think it gets better. But then you have to have the discipline to slow down and be able to say, no, I'm sorry, it's a month out, or actually it's now into June before people get new patient appointments with my practice, and that's fine with me.
Can I do
You
mine
guys?
too? So I'm going to do I already told Bree this, and I've told like half the people on the DPC forum, but two really important things in my opinion are, as soon as you have enough money, or even if you don't, hire a capable staff member. I have one that answers the phone and does all the blood draws and checks the patients in. It was vital for me to have that. Number 2 is boundaries, 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 boundaries. You're so eager to please all these people because you want them to come to you. They're lucky to come to you. You're selling an amazing form of medical care. Make them follow the rules. Don't let them text you 17 times a day. Don't let them call for an estrogen refill on a Sunday. Like, train them, and don't be afraid to set boundaries. That's huge in terms of how to be successful.
Yeah, I think it comes back to the vision. So are you going to be a Burger King or a Pizza Hut, right? And you're going to have people who want a pizza at Burger King, and that's not what you do. And maybe we should be more glamorous, like an Olive Garden. I don't know. No, I'm teasing. I would say it's just starting to get a little easier for me. I had 4 jobs for the last 3 years, so I've worked over 100 hours a week. And I now have 1 job, which is Spark, and that has made a huge difference in my mental health. The other thing is, I think I shared this with Bree, but when we sign up a new patient, it tells us their patient number. So we just signed up patient 810, but we have 540 patients. So in 3 years, I have spent probably more than 3 to 6 hours on 810 different people. So that helps me understand why I'm so tired. So I don't, and most of the people don't leave because they're angry or they didn't get service. People are still trying to sort out what this is. And I'll tell you, I think in any market, you got to love humans to be a family doc or an internist. You got to accept that they're inherently flawed. People don't think ahead. And the problem in DPC is they come in, you can spend 60 to 90 minutes with them, you figure out what's wrong, you explain it to them, you get things in control, you have the time, and then they're like, okay, well, I don't need you anymore. But you're like, well, a year from now, you're going to need me again. So it's just a lot of work. It's a big churn. But again, maybe journal, maybe take pictures and start looking how far you've come, and that can be very motivating. Save your financials, and post them and look at them and be like, oh my gosh, we're sneaking up.
Yeah, but I think the other thing is you look at attrition rates, and for us, it's about 5 to 1. I think for every 5 we get, we lose 1. And for the reasons that Julie mentioned, some people, it's a financial decision, or they're moving, or they die, and those people that you lose that panel, they use that population of people. But for us, we were probably reached our financial independence point at about the 2-year mark. And I chose not to get a salary because I want to be able to pay back debt. But for me, I could pull a salary from here, and that was when we hit. So I thought that's a pretty good rule of thumb, is where you'd be.
Thank you. I'm struck by the difference from this morning to this group. Not that it's bad, but you guys definitely have a different view. Kind of in my world, he who has the money wins. And my question to you all is, as we will be moving on to employment-based and other things, it worries me that, because docs didn't take insurance until the Great Depression, and that was because we weren't getting paid, and now we have this dysfunction. I worry. I love the direct primary care because I get money from my patients, not from a third party, which to me is an employer. So is there fear on your view in the panel, and I'm sure we'll ferret out this afternoon, of this being co-opted as another way of controlling the money and docs getting the raw end of the stick?
Yes.
Yeah, I think there is a concern for that.
Wrap
but
up?
from our end, our employee, the one employee subsidizes their care. I mean, and it's almost like a gift to the employee. So for that, it doesn't seem like there's any strings attached to it, and the employee appreciates that. But I do think there's some concerns.
Our health. I'm going to editorialize. Our healthcare crisis. I mean, the thing we haven't talked about today is what happens if no one wants to be a doctor. And why are capable, smart people spending their entire 20s and 30s acquiring $400,000 in debt, never drinking, never smoking, never doing anything fun, coming out and then having the shittiest job on the planet where they can't pay off that debt? So, I mean, that sounds horrible, but that's the reality that people don't want to talk about, is it's a shitty, shitty, shitty job. So why would smart people do it? So I think there's an even bigger dialogue here, right, is if we rapidly rebuild what we're saying we're trying to fix, but just there's a different third party, we're in the same place. And the bigger problem is, how do you incentivize capable, compassionate, intelligent people to be extremely excited to do this?
And I think the only other thing for me is we tend to, this whole idea of single payer terrifies me, because if I start getting paid by the government, I'd quit. On the other hand, why do we lump primary care in with all of the rest of care? If there was a single payer for the rest of care and then I was paid to play defense, that's the job of a DPC doc, is to play defense, to keep you away from all of the rest of that system, to keep you away from the single payer system, to keep you away from the specialists if need be. I mean, you're not going to do it all the time, but our job is to play defense for our patient, both financially, for their care, to enable them to do stuff, because we're the only one that's on their side. And so if we start taking money from insurance companies, and it was mentioned that insurance companies are going to start funding DPC. I mean, if United Health came up to me, I'm sorry, I'd tell them to go to hell if they wanted to pay me the monthly payment. I'd say, you discount your folks by that amount or more, and I will, they will pay me. I'm not going to work for you, because the minute they start paying me, that's when I start getting co-opted, because they want to see my chart. They want to see my numbers. And again, I think we've got to be really careful in the DPC movement not to allow this money to kind of sneak in, because that's how it happened in the regular system. That's how it happened in the regular system, because suddenly, you realize that your customer is no longer the patient. Your customer is the insurance company, and the product is no longer healthcare. The promised are ICD and CPD codes, and patients are simply cows that we milk the codes out of when they come in. They're raw material for codes. That's what the healthcare system is right now. And that sounds funny. I think everybody's laughing because it's so accurate. That's exactly.
Tom, back middle.
Tom.
Dr. Davidson alluded to this. I'd be interested in how each of you are handling it in your community. And that is, how do you care for the less fortunate in your community? Those that truly can't pay that recurring fee.
Yeah. How do we take care of the less fortunate? This says 5 minutes on there,
We have to talk
I
fast.
don't know what I'm paying attention to.
Okay, I'm going to give you my
Go ahead.
20-second answer. I give scholarships, free care to 5% of my total panel, and I'm hoping to up that next year.
Yeah.
Your turn.
I probably look at it from an angle that I talk to enough people that say I can't afford care with a pack of cigarettes in their front pocket. And I can't afford to do this, but they've got a new tattoo that just got on there. And so I go, there's a value system in there, and I want you to be committed to your health care. I picked a price point that is affordable, very affordable for everybody. And I like looking out in my waiting room and see a CEO of a company and also see someone who is struggling to make it, and I can help them. Because, I'll tell you, man, we charge $10 a month for our kids. And $10 a month to be able to take care of kids as a young family is a great fee. Everybody can afford that. I'm making everybody affordable. If you can't, you don't want to. And you want to be able to take from the system rather than make a contribution back. And I think, and it might be harsh that way, but I feel like we've got to have some people that when people make a decision for DPC, it's because you choose health. It's not because it's a free ticket. You choose health and you make a commitment to it. And we make a commitment to you. And I want a teamwork approach. And the idea is to instill and build health. So, and it all comers. So that's kind of my view of it.
I will jump on that, though, and say that there are times, I do that for the vast majority of my people. I just kind of roll my eyes when they say they can't afford, $40 a month. It's like, come on. give me a break. However,
But
there are some
people
patients.
who can't. But the bigger point is, I haven't taken an income. You went 2 years without an income. If you can't afford DPC, we're not saying we're the healthcare safety net.
No.
DPC, I would argue, especially at the lower price points, is already incredibly altruistic.
Well,
so
and-
I have 5 patients a year. They have to fill out a 1-page sheet of paper, and they don't get charged. And I pay for their CT scans and their labs and things like that. And some people won't fill out that 1 sheet of paper.
Yeah.
So, and people will say, well, I've had the criticism. And I say, when I worked for the big system, I didn't even meet these people because they couldn't make it through the door. So what would be really awesome is if we have 4 clinics, we'd have enough corporate revenue to open a completely free clinic, which would then be really awesome.
I don't accept new patients on a discount in general, but if I have patients who have been seeing me and paying, and then they lose their job, I'll say $10. That's it. I don't care. I mean, and that's the thing. I can do that. I can say, and that's actually good business. I'll say $10 for the next 6 months, or I will set a time limit on it and say this is about how long it is. But then they are loyal. They stick with. Some are ungrateful, of course, but that's just people. So we've got to wrap up.
Should we do one more question?
Let's do
What about the-
one more question.
what about the
Dino,
video
go ahead. Do you guys just want to go on a little longer?
one thing onto that?
Yeah.
Do you want this?
So
I'm not going to throw it.
I've been open 15 months. I was really lucky. I was cash flow positive month 1. So
That's great.
can't tell you how that happens. But this idea of people who can't pay, I do believe there absolutely are a segment of the population that can't. They just can't. Most people can, and it comes up to what Ken said about priorities. One of the things that's a really key part of my DPC, in terms of what I feel is well-being for patients, is I teach them how to budget. I seriously have multiple visits where we learn about budgeting. And patients totally appreciate it because they know that the reason I'm doing it is not to get paid. It's that they don't have financial stress in their life. Like what happens when you have something happen and you can't work for a month? Do you have money saved away? Why were you not able to? Well, you don't have any steps to. That's part of what I'm going to do for you. So in a way, I'm kind of a financial counselor, but just for the idea of budgeting, because I do think that's part of mental well-being, not living paycheck to paycheck and being able to take care of things like that come up. And there are people who stay in the practice because of that. And there are people who just don't value spending the money, period.
Dina, last question for the audience, Dina.
So I've got a public health degree, so I'm kind of interested in how direct, that's my perspective, how direct primary care can impact the health of the entire population, whether they're employed, whether they're Medicaid or Medicare or whatever. And I know that we don't want to necessarily get involved with all of those payers. However, convincing all the stakeholders is going to require some data. And my question to you is, what's the right compromise from your perspective? You know I've struggled with this. You know I'm not happy with having to produce all this data. But I'm recognizing that there's got to be a compromise somewhere. Something we got to give to the bean counters in D.C. and the Medicaid people in Olympia, Washington, and all of these folks trying to make sense of what we're doing from a population health perspective.
Well,
Dino, you know I disagree. I didn't go to med school to be a bean counter. That's not my job, and I'm very comfortable saying it's not my job.
And
So if that's your master, if that's your payer, you got to do what they ask.
My answer.
I'm not saying, I'm saying I have more than a full-time job being a doctor. That's what I need to do.
Which is why we need companies like Hint, like Elation, like all of these other companies doing that for us and helping us collect and gather that data. That's why we need those people, and we need good companies. All right,
Here, drop this.
I'm getting major hairy eyeballs here, but I greatly appreciate your engagement. I appreciate it. Oh, we got 15 more minutes?
Ooh.
Yay!
Oh,
All right.
there are video questions.
Now, there are some
video
live questions here. I have not gotten any live questions on here. Maybe I have the wrong thing.
live people.
While we're waiting on that, it's just not happening? Nobody submitted it.
guys.
Oh, because you guys did such a good job. Let me say this. I'm going to ask the panel each for a piece of advice. Let's ask for a piece. Let's say a pearl that you have for the audience at large. I will start and say Facebook is my favorite marketing tool. I use Facebook. I have about 2,000 followers on Facebook, on my Facebook page, not personal, but on my Facebook page. And I engage people on that. I put humorous things on there. I put interesting things on there. I just kind of, I put one thing about how useful helmets are recently, where, people had, knives sticking out of their helmets or whatever, like, why you should wear a helmet when you ride a bike, whatever. But I engage people on that thing. And if I put interesting content, then they share it with their friends. And I mean, I have gotten so many people through Facebook. I don't have to spend anything else on marketing. Facebook is my main marketing tool. So that's my pearl.
My pearls, nothing sells like authenticity. So figure out your message and be authentic. Plan the worst case financial scenario, multiply it by 1.3 and create a plan that protects it. So 30% error. Those are my two big pearls.
My biggest pearl is be convinced you're doing the right thing. I think you got to know this is the way to go. There's no doubt about it. The gratitude of the patients far outweighs anything you've ever seen before. They recognize when somebody really cares about them, and time is a commodity. And when you can give that time, that has so much intrinsic value and so much value all the way through for that patient. And I didn't recognize that until I started doing it. And then I thought, wow, this is an extremely powerful tool for medicine.
They took all my pearls. No, connect with all of us. Connect with the community. Ask questions. We are all here to help you. I have no agenda. I am not selling anything. Call me, email me. Connect with all of us.
Okay, and we are closing now.